Hello, humans. Welcome to another episode of Learning About Space Stuff because I don't know anything about space stuff, but I want to know stuff about space stuff. It's a very long episode title, but that's exactly what it is. So, we are going to watch Apollo 8 Part 3 on the NASA YouTube channel. If you're just joining me for the first time, I am going through the NASA YouTube channel from the oldest videos to the newest videos. These videos were recorded or they were uploaded 17 years ago, which is crazy that YouTube is even that old because I remember learning about YouTube for the first time when it first came out because I'm an old person. Anyways, we're going to watch this video now. This is the third part. NASA broke it up into three different parts when they uploaded it 17 years ago. I don't know why. They're about 10 minutes each. With my React content, they're about 15-20 minutes each. And we'll watch this, and then after this, we'll continue going through their channel, watching videos, learning about NASA and the things that NASA's been doing. If you have any comments about anything I say, if you have any answers to any questions I ask because I don't know, or if I say something wrong, feel free to correct me in the comments. Like and subscribe if you want to. You don't have to. It's your life, but it's free. It is free for a limited time only. All right, and let's go.
Bill Anders will always mention that he was the first one to get to the moon because he was in a position whereby he was a few centimeters ahead of us as he rotated the spacecraft.
Mark Spitz, first is first, No, wait. The reason is we were flying backwards and he had a bigger butt. That's the only... Whatever it takes.
But when we finally came into the earthshine, or sunshine, actually, we came out, I think we were best expressed as three school kids looking through a candy store window. The flight plan was forgotten for a few moments. Our noses were pressed to the glass, and we were all looking at those ancient old craters on the far side of the moon, which, of course, as you all know, we don't see from.
Oh, they didn't have windows in the 60s? I thought they had windows. They had to look through it. Binoculoscopes? Interesting.
The Earth. And to see what they were and how they were, we were just 60 miles above the moon at that time. And I think that's one of the great impressions I've had in the first instances of actually becoming a satellite of the moon.
Jim was busy photographing along the flight path through the navigation system.
All right, y'all don't know this yet because I haven't talked about this yet, but I'm a photographer by trade. I've done mostly motorsports and automotive for the majority of my career, but I also do the standard, weddings, family portraits, sporting events, and stuff like that. Lunar photography? I've actually never done lunar photography from Earth. Obviously, from Earth, I've never been anywhere but Earth. But to do it like from a moving spacecraft, looking down on the moon's surface, sounds like both the best and coolest, but also the lamest and boringest thing ever at the same time. Because, like, the moon, I've never seen it up close. I assume, from what I can see from this distance, is it's flattish. I mean, it looks, it's relatively flatter than Earth, I guess, is what I think it is. It has a lot of craters, obviously, and then it's like, it's white or gray, mostly. So it's like, I don't know what I would take pictures of, especially from an aerial view. I guess all my pictures would just be of holes on the moon. But there is that one, I think it's Bill Anders, this guy right here, who took the famous picture of like the half Earth kind of over the horizon of the moon. I don't if I'm describing that correctly, but I think that's this William Anders there that took that picture. But otherwise, it would be so cool to be in the position to take those pictures, but at the same time, I have no idea what I would take pictures of.
And I was shooting right, left, one thing that I don't think we had a light meter. The NASA had calculated what the reflected light would be depending on our longitude, which depends.
Right. So he, of course, I didn't think about this. 60s, he'd be shooting manually with film. he wouldn't be shooting digitally. I would have it so much easier today doing it, shooting it digitally, because I could just adjust for light and everything on the fly in my camera. But that would be so much harder to do when you're shooting. And also, how did he shoot? If they're looking through binocular things to see out to, did he like put the lens of the camera up into the binocular thing, or did they custom build into the side of the ship like a place to put the camera to take pictures of? I want to know about that. I've made a list of all the like questions I have as I've been watching these videos. I'll put that on the list.
Depend on our time, and so I just checked the clock and I'd turn it F this or F that, and so we got a lot of good pictures of the lunar surface.
As Bill said, he was doing all this with photography, and I wanted him to be studying the systems, doing this. So I said, Anders, forget about those pictures. Don't worry about it. But we'll be able. And he was doing all this on the sly in the sauna, without anybody knowing about it. But actually, I think that was probably the most important evidence that we brought back was the photography. And Jim and Bill did it all.
We were coming.
Never tell a photographer not to take pictures of something that no one else has ever taken pictures of. They won't listen. They'll just get annoyed at you. I can attest. Not that I've taken pictures of things that nobody's ever taken pictures of, but I've taken some very unique pictures. And I can attest 100% that if I was taking pictures, and I know he's first and foremost a scientist, right? Secondly, a photographer. But like, if I was taking pictures of the moon, I would not be listening to anything else. And I'm like, you can fire me when we get back to Earth, but for right now, I am taking my pictures.
Around on this third revolution, and I was taking pictures over here. Jim was asleep. I'm not even sure what he was doing. And I think Frank yelled out, "Look," or something. And here was this gorgeous thing coming up over the lunar horizon, the back side of the moon, much rougher than the front side of the moon. And so, boy, there was a mad scramble for cameras. Each guy had one, started firing off. I was lucky because I had one with a long lens and color film. And I just kept snapping and turning the f-stop. And each of the guys took the same view but different size lenses, and it just so happened that NASA picked the one I took as the iconic Earthrise picture. But frankly, even though they both claimed they took it, they know who did. But I consider it kind of a crew picture.
We've talked about being in orbit now, and one of the more exciting parts of the mission from my standpoint was lighting the rocket to get us home. Otherwise, we'd still be there. On the 10th revolution, behind the moon, we lit the rocket for about 4 or 5 minutes. It worked perfectly, and we started home. And go ahead, James.
Well, I have.
Not to interrupt his story here, but he said otherwise we'd still be there. Of course, he's joking, but that prompts the question: has anyone ever been left up in space? I know we just recently had those astronauts because of Boeing's incompetence, poor quality control, whatever you want to call it. They just got stranded up in the space station for a while. So I know that happened, but did the Russians or us even ever send, us being Americans, ever send someone to space who didn't come back? Question. That's going on the question list.
I have to get into detail here because we're in the far side of the moon and we have to light this engine, otherwise we'll be captured permanently as the satellite of the moon. And so my job was to actually do the work through the computer, and we had a signal, or actually numbers on the computer that got down to 5 seconds before it should be lit, and it said something like, "Do you really want to make this maneuver?" This gave you a little bit of a chance to say, "Hey, I don't want to do this," to think about it. And so I hesitated with my finger, and Borman says, "Push the button, push the button."
Anyway, my recollection is we're coming back 35,000 feet a second, way over any world speed record that had been set before.
Yeah,
7 miles a second, basically. Jeez. And I remarked to Frank or Jim and said, "Gee, it looks like are we getting sunrise? Or no, were we getting entry?" And they said, "Oh no, this is sunrise." And I said, "Well, if this is sunrise, we're going right into the sun." And it just got brighter and brighter and brighter. And pretty soon I felt like a bug that was somehow gotten inside a blowtorch flame watching this torch go. And as the G's build up, every now and then it looked like a big chunk would come flying off the heat shield. Well, when you see the meteors coming in, you know, they light up very bright, but really they're just tiny little pebbles, and they ionize and make a big flash. I didn't think about that at the time, and I could just feel the heat coming through the spacecraft. And then we got down lower. We came in at night, first night re-entry. Then it got dark, and at 50,000 feet or so, the drogues fired, and we could feel a jerk. That was very reassuring. And then at 18,000 or something, the main chutes came out, 12,000, and but we couldn't see them, and I think we needed 2 to make it, you know.
Yeah.
The only thing scarier to me than launching into space would be coming back to Earth. Because I feel like once you've made it up there, I feel like you would think the hard part's over, which in one sense it would be. But then, like, to have to sit through all that and, like, be coming back and being like, oh, the chutes were supposed to deploy. I didn't see the parachutes deploy. Guess I'm just going to die. Like, that's crazy. That would be terrifying, honestly. But I know SpaceX does it with such regularity now. This was, again, in the 60s, but I know SpaceX does it with such regularity now that it might not seem so consequential of a thing to re-enter into the atmosphere anymore. I don't know. I've never been in or out of the atmosphere. But I don't know. I wonder what astronauts modernly, if they still get as, you know, frightened and concerned as these guys did in the 60s. That would be a very interesting question to pose to a modern astronaut and try to gauge their reaction on what the fear level is and confidence level in technology is exiting and re-entering atmosphere nowadays.
And so it all seemed like one jerk, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, 3 chutes and 1 pull, that's not too good. But our Jim and Frank checked our vertical velocity, seemed to be in orbit. But when we hit, it was the biggest belly buster I've ever been on. And one of Frank's jobs was to flick a switch that would blow off the parachutes. But, you know, we hit so hard it just ripped his hand from the switch. And by the time he could recover, the chutes had pulled downwind and this thing was floating upside down. So I thought, here we were, conquering heroes from the moon, hanging from our straps, and all the trash that was in the spacecraft that had collected on the floor when we were coming in now was raining down on our face. So it was, that's one of my big recollections.
Well, we came.
So I'm guessing he's meaning when they hit the ocean. Because I believe all these early, that's how they did it. They all entered back in the atmosphere. They all splashed down into the ocean and then are recovered by boats. That's my recollection of history from what my limited knowledge of the space programs over the years. I seem to remember that's how they did it. So he must be talking about he was holding some sort of switch to switch off the parachutes or to detach them or whatever, and his hand ripped when they hit the ocean because of how much. I wonder how deep they go, because they can't. I know the bottom of the lunar module things that they're in are flat, so it's kind of like a belly flop situation. But like, they have to. I would imagine coming in that hot, you'd have to go under some amount of distance before it comes back up. I wonder what that's like, if that's factual or conjecture. I don't know. I'd have to look that up.
Because
I guess maybe with parachutes,
why we hit so hard, the spacecraft was hanging from the parachutes at an angle. And the idea was that the edge of the spacecraft would slice into the water and sort of not make it a little bit easier for the landing. Well, it so happened that we were swinging on the shrouds of the parachutes, and also the wave action was such that they both matched so that we hit both things flat. And that's what caused the sudden hitting the water.
Waves.
And of course the parachutes then pulled us over to what is known as a stable 2, which meant that we were hanging upside down just on our straps, which is sort of an unusual way. And so Frank had to throw another switch that inflated about 3 balloons that slowly made us rotate up. And all this motion,
yeah.
of course, with Frank was another little disconcerting thing. And he couldn't wait to get out of that spacecraft to get back.
So I actually know what they're talking about there because I have and I believe this mission was on the Saturn V. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I do not know that for sure. This is the Apollo 8 mission. I think it was on the Saturn V. I bought and built a couple years ago. I didn't buy it. My brother bought it for me for Christmas. Got the Lego Saturn V. And because I thought it was such a cool set. And again, I've always been a casual fan of space, and I really enjoy space aesthetic things, but I've never really studied it or gotten into it as much as I'm doing now. But I built it, and it came with this little lunar module, which I wish I like could go get and show you, but I know for a fact it's buried in the Lego pile somewhere. But it's this little like miniature Lego model of the splashdown, whatever the thing is called that they go into the ocean, and it has these 3 little like balloons on it that like uprights the capsule in the water. So I actually know what they're talking about because of Lego, not because I've studied the actual craft they're in or studied space enough to know that I know this because of Lego. So good on you, Lego, for your realistic detail there.
Back on that ship.
I think that the three of us were very, very fortunate Americans. 400,000 people put that thing together, 400,000 Americans.
Wow.
Several died in it, in the fire and in airplane crashes. I felt very, very, very blessed to be with Jim and Bill because there was a wonderful camaraderie there.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah, I know. I'm still mad about you doing that in the sauna, but nevertheless, it was a remarkable feeling, and I can remember as we stepped out on the carrier with that fresh ocean breeze and the flag flying there and the sailors all standing around. It was a feeling to me of overwhelming sense of gratitude.
That is crazy because, okay, so I also recently got to go onto an aircraft carrier, not one in service currently, one that's docked. And it's such a big ship, obviously. But it's like not everyone who's in the Navy ever gets to go on one of those things. It's only a very tight selection of people across Navy Air Force, there we go, that get to go on to the aircraft carriers. So, like, you're already in a special group of people to be on an aircraft carrier. But if you're on an aircraft carrier and a helicopter lands and 3 people step out and everyone on the carrier is in awe because they've done something that's like special, like that's got to be an epic, like they've done something that's so much more special than what I've done to get onto this aircraft carrier. That's a crazy, like, got to be like a respect paradigm there. And that would just be so cool to see those guys disembark from the helicopter after knowing that they were literally off planet, which is a crazy term that I get to say because of the technology level we have in this day and age. But that would be a really cool thing to witness.
For what we had been part of.
As soon as we got down, at least in my feelings, I didn't realize exactly what we had accomplished. I knew that we accomplished a successful first flight to the moon, but I didn't know the significance of it for the United States and for the world of what had happened. It takes time for these things to sink in. It takes a little bit of history and aging to say, hey, really what happened? How does this affect, our view of the country? Especially as Martin had mentioned, 1968 was a very poor year in this country, and then we suddenly ended that year on a positive note, doing something positive for.
They said in the first video of this part 3 video that this was just before Christmas in 1968. So they've ended the year on a high note, and we got people into space, orbit around the moon, and then come back to Earth. So that's really cool for history. That's really cool for them. And I'm sure, like he's saying, it's a lot to take in. Like, you understand conceptually that you've just done this amazing thing, but I'm sure it's like it's got to take probably years to for you to realize I've done something that no other human has ever done, or I was the first to do something, or I was the first to see something, or that's got to be such a cool feeling.
The country that everybody could take pride in.
And in a sense, great feelings about the accomplishment, but I frankly felt a little guilty because all of us had comrades and colleagues doing things that I thought were a lot more dangerous. Fighting in Vietnam, a lot of colleagues shot down, put in prison. El Dorado Canyon, raid on Libya. Frankly, I think Apollo 8 was probably a lot safer. And we were lucky to be part of it, as Frank said.
No, I did too. I agree with you. And, you stop thinking, look at John Glenn. 69 missions in World War II, and there's so many missions in Korea. And, if I hadn't been in Apollo, I would have wanted to been in Vietnam. Yeah. But we weren't. And we sort of got all the adulation and all the success and all the plaudits. And there were so many people that were trying to serve this country under much more difficult circumstances. So I felt very humble and very grateful.
Wow, okay, so that was the third and final part of the Apollo 8 three-parter that was uploaded 17 years ago onto the NASA YouTube channel. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I learned a lot. I didn't even know on the first video, you can go back and watch it, I didn't even know which mission it was that got the astronauts landing on the moon. So now I've learned that that wasn't this mission. That must have happened in 69, not 68. Maybe it was Apollo 9 or some other ones. I'm sure we'll learn about it here. But anyways, thanks for joining me. And if you enjoy this kind of space content, if you have any sort of other stuff I should watch that's like non-NASA, that's other creators, I would love to watch it. The only reason I'm sticking to NASA on the onset of this channel is because I don't really know a whole lot about space. I don't have enough confidence, I don't think, to just go out into the into the void of YouTube and click on things and be able to know, is this legit space, is this speculation, is this conspiracy, so I just want to stick with NASA stuff for now until I've learned enough to kind of have the confidence to go in and explore other topics on my own. But if you're into space and you have some suggestions, go ahead, drop it in the comments, and I will get to things as I'm able. And see you next time.